Exodus chapter 1. Here are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. These descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Apart from these, Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, as did all his brothers and all that generation. The sons of Israel were fruitful and kept increasing. To such an extent did they multiply and grow in strength that the land teemed with them. Then a new king who had not known Joseph came to power and said to his people, "The Israelites are more numerous and stronger than we are. Let us deal warily with them, lest they increase still more, and in case of war, side with our enemy, fight against us, and escape from the land." So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. In that way, they built the storage towns of Pithom and Rameses. But the more they oppressed the Hebrews, the more they increased and spread, until the Egyptians dreaded the Israelites and became ruthless in making them work. They made life bitter for them in hard labor with bricks and mortar, and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their work, the Egyptians treated them harshly. Then the king of Egypt gave orders to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was called Shiphrah and the other Puah, that when they attended Hebrew women who were on the birth stool and saw that it was a boy, they were to kill it. But if it was a girl, they were to let it live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but let the children live. The king called the midwives and said, "Why have you acted like that, and let the children live?" The midwives replied, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth even before a midwife arrives." God blessed the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. Because the midwives revered God, He made them mothers of families. Pharaoh then gave this order to all the people: "Every infant boy born to the Hebrews must be thrown into the Nile, but every girl may live." Exodus chapter 2. Now a man belonging to the clan of Levi married a woman of his own tribe. She gave birth to a boy, and seeing that he was a beautiful child, she kept him hidden for 3 months. As she could not conceal him any longer, she made a basket out of papyrus leaves and coated it with tar and pitch. She then laid the child in the basket and placed it among the reeds near the bank of the Nile. But the sister of the child kept at a distance to see what would happen to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile. Her attendants, meanwhile, walked along the bank. When she saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maidservant to fetch it. She opened the basket and saw the child, a boy, and he was crying. She felt sorry for him, for she thought, "This is one of the Hebrew children." Then the sister of the child said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" Pharaoh's daughter agreed, and the girl went to call the mother of the child. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take the child and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the child and nursed him, and when the child had grown, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her son. And she named him Moses to recall that she had drawn him out of the water. After a fairly long time, Moses, by now a grown man, wanted to meet his fellow Hebrews. He noticed how heavily they were burdened, and he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his own people. He looked around, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, he saw two Hebrews quarreling. Moses said to the man in the wrong, "Why are you striking a fellow countryman?" But he answered, "Who has set you prince and judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must be known." When Pharaoh heard about it, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. There he sat down by a well. A priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's sheep. Some shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses went to their help and watered the sheep. When the girls returned to their father, Reuel, he asked them, "Why have you come back so early today?" They said, "An Egyptian protected us from the shepherds, and even drew water for us and watered the sheep." The man said, "Where is he? Why did you leave him there? Call him and offer him a meal." Moses agreed to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah in marriage. She had a child, and Moses named him Gershom, to recall that he had been a guest in a strange land. It happened during that long period of time that the king of Egypt died. The sons of Israel groaned under their slavery. They cried to God for help, and from their bondage their cry ascended to God. God heard their sigh and remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God looked upon the Israelites and revealed himself to them. Exodus chapter 3. Moses pastured the sheep of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. One day he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him by means of a flame of fire in the middle of a bush. Moses saw that although the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. Moses thought, "I will go and see this amazing sight. Why is the bush not burning up?" Yahweh saw that Moses was drawing near to look, and God called to him from the middle of the bush, "Moses, Moses." He replied, "Here I am." Yahweh said to him, "Do not come near. Take off your sandals, because the place where you are standing is holy ground. And God continued, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face, lest his eyes look on God. Yahweh said, I have seen the humiliation of my people in Egypt, and I hear their cry when they are cruelly treated by their taskmasters. I know their suffering. I have come down to free them from the power of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a beautiful, spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the territory of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the sons of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Go now, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the people of Israel out of Egypt? God replied, I will be with you, and this will be the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moses answered God, If I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, they will ask me, What is his name? What shall I answer them? God said to Moses, I am who am. This is what you will say to the sons of Israel. I am sent me to you. God then said to Moses, You will say to the Israelites, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me. That will be my name forever, and by this name they shall call upon me for all generations to come. Go, call together the elders of Israel, and say to them, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob appeared to me and said, I have seen and taken account of how the Egyptians have treated you, and I mean to bring you out of all this oppression in Egypt and take you to the land of the Canaanites, a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of Israel will listen to you, and with them you shall go to the palace of the king of Egypt and say to him, The God of the Hebrews, Yahweh, has met with us. Now let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to Yahweh our God. I well know that the king of Egyptians will not allow you to go unless he is forced to do so. I will therefore stretch out my hand and strike Egypt in extraordinary ways, after which he will let you go. And I will make the Egyptians treat my people well when you leave. You will not go empty-handed. Each woman will ask her neighbor and any Egyptian woman staying in her house to lend her ornaments of silver and gold and clothing. With these you will clothe your sons and daughters, and in this way you will plunder the Egyptians. Exodus chapter 4. Moses replied to Yahweh, What if they will not believe me or listen to me? Maybe they will say, That is not true. Yahweh did not appear to you. Yahweh then asked him, What is that in your right hand? A staff, he replied. God said, "Throw it to the ground." He threw it, and it became a serpent, and Moses drew back from it. Yahweh said, "Take it by the tail." Moses took it, and it was again a staff in his hand. Then Yahweh said, "With such signs they may believe that Yahweh, the God of your fathers, appeared to you." Again Yahweh said to him, "Put your hand on your chest." He put his hand on his chest, and when he took it away, his hand was covered with leprosy, white as snow. And God said, "Put your hand back on your chest." So he put it back, and when he took it away again, his hand was healthy like the rest of his body. Yahweh added, "If they don't believe you and are not convinced by the first sign, they will believe you when they see the second. But if these two signs are not enough to make them believe you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the ground, and the water from the river will turn into blood." Moses said to Yahweh, "But my Lord, never have I been a fluent speaker, either before or after you have spoken to me. I cannot find words to express what I want to say." Yahweh said to him, "Who gave man a mouth? Who makes him dumb or deaf, with sight or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? Go now. I will be on your lips and will inspire what you say." But Moses insisted, "My Lord, I pray you, why not send someone else?" At this Yahweh became angry with Moses and said, "What of your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he speaks well. Look, he is coming to meet you, and he will be glad when he sees you. You will speak to him and tell him what I have told you to say. And when you tell him or when he speaks, I will be with you and teach you what you have to say. Aaron will speak for you as a prophet speaks for his God. And with this staff in your hand, you will work miraculous signs." Then Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "I am going back to my brothers in Egypt to see if they are still alive." Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." Yahweh said to Moses in the land of Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all those who wanted to kill you are dead." Moses took with him his wife and his sons. He put them on a donkey and set off for Egypt, holding in his hand the staff of God. Yahweh said to Moses, "You are returning to Egypt, and you will perform all the miraculous signs that I have empowered you to do in the presence of Pharaoh. I will, however, make him stubborn so that he will not let the people go. You shall then say to Pharaoh, 'This is Yahweh's message. Israel is my firstborn son.' And I said to you, 'Let my son go, that he may worship me.' But you have refused to let him go, and because of this, I will take the life of your firstborn son." At a lodging place on the way, the angel of Yahweh approached Moses and tried to kill him. But Zipporah took a flint stone and cut her son's foreskin, and with it she touched the feet of Moses, saying, "You are now my husband by blood." And the angel left him. Zipporah said, "Husband by blood, because of the circumcision." Yahweh said to Aaron, "Go into the desert and meet your brother Moses." So Aaron went, and met him at the mountain of God and kissed him. Moses related to Aaron all that Yahweh had said to him and all the signs he had commanded him to perform. Moses and Aaron assembled all the elders of the Israelites, and Aaron told them everything that Yahweh had said to Moses. He also performed all the signs before the people, and they believed him. When they heard that Yahweh had visited the people of Israel and had seen their suffering, they bowed to the ground and worshipped him. Exodus chapter 5. After this, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, that they may hold a feast for me in the desert." Pharaoh replied, "Who is Yahweh, that I should listen to his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, and I will not let Israel go." They then said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Allow us to make a 3 days journey to the desert. There we shall offer sacrifices to Yahweh our God, lest he punish us with the plague or the sword." The king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take people away from their work? Get back to your tasks. The people are now numerous, and you are asking them to interrupt their work." That same day, Pharaoh gave the following order to the taskmasters of the people and to the Israelite foremen: "You will no longer supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and find it themselves. But you will exact from them the same number of bricks as before, not one less. They are lazy, and that is why they are crying out to go and sacrifice to their God. Make the work harder for the people, and pay no attention to their lies." The slave drivers and their Israelite foremen went out and said to the people, "Pharaoh will not give you any more straw. Go and get it yourselves, wherever you can find it, but the amount of work done must be the same as before." The people scattered throughout Egypt to gather stubble to use for straw. The taskmasters kept pressing them, saying, "Complete the work required of you each day, as you did when you had straw." The taskmasters beat the Israelite foremen they had placed over the people, saying, "Why haven't your people completed the same amount of work as before?" The Israelite foremen complained to Pharaoh, saying, "Why do you treat us like this? We are given no straw, and yet we are told to make bricks. We are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people." Pharaoh replied, "Lazy, you are lazy, and that is why you ask to go and sacrifice to Yahweh. Go back to work. You will not be given straw, but you will produce the same number of bricks." The Israelite foremen felt they were in great trouble. They met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them, and said to them, "May Yahweh look upon you and judge you, because you have made us hateful to Pharaoh and his ministers, and placed in his hand a sword to kill us." Moses then turned to Yahweh and said, "O Lord, why have you treated your people so badly? Why did you send me? From the time I spoke to Pharaoh in your name, he has brought trouble on his people, and you have done nothing to rescue them." Exodus chapter 6. Yahweh said to Moses, Now you will see that I will overcome him and oblige him to let you go, even force him to drive you out of his land. God spoke to Moses, saying, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, but I did not make myself known to them by the name of Yahweh. I established my covenant with them, promising to give them the land of Canaan, in which they lived as strangers. And now I remember my covenant, as I hear the groaning of the Israelites, enslaved by the Egyptians. Therefore, say this to them, I am Yahweh. I will take you away from the burden of Egypt and free you from its bondage. I will redeem you with the blows of my powerful hand. I will take you for my people, and you will know that I am Yahweh your God, who delivered you from the slavery of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land I swore I would give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as your own possession. I am Yahweh. This is how Moses spoke to the people of Israel, but they did not listen. So discouraged were they by their cruel slavery. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Go and speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and tell him to let the people of Israel leave the country. But Moses said, If the Israelites paid no attention to me, how then will Pharaoh listen to me, a man who has difficulty in expressing himself? But Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron and ordered them, and Pharaoh as well, to bring the people of Israel out of Egypt. These were the heads of the tribes, sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Hanok, Pallu, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. Sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Sohar, and Shaul, son of a Canaanite woman. These are the families of Simeon. These are the sons of Levi with their descendants, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived 137 years. Sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei, and their descendants. Sons of Kohath, Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived for 133 years. Sons of Merari, Mali, and Mushi. These are the descendants of Levi with their families. Amram married Jochebath, his son, who gave him 2 sons, Aaron and Moses. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Ishar were Korah, Nepheg, and Sikri. The sons of Uzziel, Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sitri. Aaron married Elsheba, daughter of Aminadab and sister of Nashon, and she bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These are the families of Korahites. Eleazar, son of Aaron, married one of Putiel's daughters, and Phinehas was their son. These are the heads of the families of the Levites according to their clans. It was to Aaron and Moses that Yahweh said, Bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt in divisions. It was they who spoke with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, about bringing the Israelites out of Egypt. Yes, it was Moses and Aaron. When Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, he said, I am Yahweh. Say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I tell you. But Moses replied, I am a poor speaker, and why would Pharaoh listen to me? Exodus chapter 7. Yahweh said to Moses, "See, I have made you like a god in Pharaoh's eyes, and Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You will tell Aaron all that I command you, and he will tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel leave the country. But I will make him stubborn, and although I multiply my signs and miracles, he will not listen to you. Then I will use my power and lead my armies, my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt by means of great punishments. Then will the Egyptians know that I am Yahweh when they see with what power I bring the people of Israel out of their country." Moses and Aaron did exactly what Yahweh had commanded. Moses was 80 and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "When Pharaoh speaks to you and tells you to perform a miracle to prove the truth of what you say, you will say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake.'" Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did what Yahweh had commanded. Aaron threw his staff before Pharaoh and his ministers, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and magicians, and they too, the magicians of Egypt, did the same by means of their secret arts. Each one threw his staff down, and the staffs became serpents. But Aaron's staff swallowed the staffs of the magicians. However, Pharaoh was obstinate, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. Yahweh said to Moses, "Pharaoh is stubborn. He has refused to let the people leave. So you will go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes to the water. Wait for him on the bank of the river, and hold in your hand the staff that turned into a serpent. You will say to him, 'Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, sent me to say to you, let my people go to worship me in the desert. But so far you have not listened. By this you shall learn that I am Yahweh. Look, I will strike the water of the Nile with the staff I have in my hand, and it will turn into blood. The fish in the river will die, and the Nile will become foul, and the Egyptians will no longer be able to drink its water." Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, rivers, canals, ponds, and pools of water, and they will turn into blood. There will be blood throughout Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone." Moses and Aaron did as Yahweh had commanded. Aaron raised his staff and struck the waters of the Nile in the presence of Pharaoh and his ministers, and all the water in the Nile turned to blood. The fish in the river died, and the Nile was contaminated, so that the Egyptians could no longer drink the water of the Nile. There was blood all over the country of Egypt. The Egyptian magicians, however, could do the same with their secret crafts, and Pharaoh remained unmoved. And as Yahweh had foretold, he would not listen to Moses and Aaron. Pharaoh returned to his house as if nothing of importance had happened. And yet all the Egyptians were digging near the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink from the river. 7 days passed after Yahweh had struck the Nile. Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him that Yahweh says, 'Let my people go to worship me.' If you refuse to let them leave, I will punish the country with a plague of frogs, The Nile will teem with frogs. They will invade your house, your bedroom and your bed, your servants and your people's houses, your ovens and your kneading bowls. Over you and your people the frogs will climb. Exodus chapter 8. Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, canals, and ponds of Egypt, and cause frogs to cover all the country of Egypt." The magicians of Egypt did the same by means of their secret formulas, and they brought frogs over the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Ask Yahweh to remove the frogs from me and my people, and I will send your people to sacrifice to Yahweh." But Moses replied, "Let me know, please, when I am to make the petition for you, your officials and your people, that you may be rid of frogs, except in the Nile." Pharaoh answered, "Tomorrow." And Moses said, "Right, and that you may know that there is no one like Yahweh our God, the frogs will disappear from you and your house, your servants and your people. Only in the Nile will they remain." With this, Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh. Then Moses called on Yahweh concerning the frogs that he had inflicted on Pharaoh. Yahweh did as Moses had promised Pharaoh, and the frogs died in the houses, the farms, and the fields. The people piled them in heaps, and the land was filled with a foul smell. Now that relief had come, Pharaoh became even more stubborn and would not listen, just as Yahweh had foretold. Yahweh said to Moses, "Tell Aaron to strike the dust of the earth with his staff and turn it into mosquitoes throughout the land." Aaron did this. He struck the dust of the earth, which turned into mosquitoes that tormented people and animals. All the dust of the earth all over Egypt turned into mosquitoes. But when the magicians tried, by means of their secret formulas, to drive away the mosquitoes, they were not able to do so, and the mosquitoes kept tormenting people and animals. The magicians said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh was unmoved and did not listen, as Yahweh had foretold. Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and go to Pharaoh when he is on his way to the river. Say to him, 'This is Yahweh's message. Let my people go and worship me.' If you refuse to let them go, I will send horse flies on you, on your officials, and on your people and your house. The houses of the Egyptians will be filled with horse flies, and even the ground on which they are built. But on that day I will spare the land of Goshen, where my people are. No horse flies will be there, and by this you may know that I, Yahweh, am in the land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people. By tomorrow this will have happened." Yahweh did this, and dense swarms of horseflies invaded Pharaoh's house and the houses of all his people and devastated the whole country. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go and sacrifice to your God in this country." But Moses replied, "That would not be right. We offer to our God animals which are sacred for the Egyptians. If we were to offer in their presence a sacrifice which offends the Egyptians, wouldn't they stone us? We must make a 3-day journey into the desert and there we will sacrifice to Yahweh our God, as he commands. Pharaoh replied, I will let you go and sacrifice to your God in the desert, but on condition that you do not go far, and pray to God for me. Moses said, I am leaving you, and I will pray to Yahweh for you. And tomorrow the hard supplies will leave you, your officials and your people. But do not continue to deceive us by refusing to let the people go to the desert. Moses left Pharaoh's house and prayed to Yahweh, who did as Moses had asked, and delivered Pharaoh, his officers, and people from the hard supplies. Not one hard supply was left, but Pharaoh was relentless and refused to let the people go. Exodus chapter 9. Yahweh said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, This is the message of Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews. Let my people go and offer sacrifices to me. If you refuse to let them go and hold them back any longer, the hand of Yahweh will bring a terrible plague on your horses, your donkeys, and your camels, on your cattle and your sheep. But Yahweh will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and that of Egypt. Nothing belonging to the people of Israel will die. Yahweh then fixed a time and said, It will be done tomorrow. Yahweh did this the following day. All the livestock belonging to the Egyptians died, but not one owned by the Israelites died. Pharaoh made inquiries and in fact found that one of the cattle belonging to the Israelites had died. But Pharaoh remained adamant and did not let the people go. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, Take 2 handfuls of ashes from the brick oven and let Moses throw it up in the air in front of Pharaoh's eyes. It will become fine dust all over Egypt and bring festering boils on people and animals. So they took ashes from the oven, and in the presence of Pharaoh, Moses threw it up in the air, and it brought festering boils on people and animals. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because they had boils like all the other Egyptians. But Yahweh made Pharaoh stubborn, and he did not listen to Moses and Aaron as Yahweh had foretold. Yahweh said to Moses, Rise early, present yourself to Pharaoh, and say to him, This is the message of Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews. Send my people away to worship me, because this time I will send the full force of my plagues against you, your ministers and your people, that you may know there is no one like me in the whole world. For had I wished, I could have raised my hand against you and your people, and with a similar pestilence wiped you from the face of the earth. But this is why I have let you live, that you may witness my power, and that my name may be celebrated throughout the earth. Are you still set against my people leaving the country? Tomorrow at this time I will send very heavy hail, such as has never been in Egypt from the day of its foundation. So now let all your livestock and all that you have in the fields take shelter, because when the hail falls on all that remains in the fields, whether people or animals, they will die. Those among Pharaoh's officials who believed Yahweh's word hurried to bring their slaves and cattle inside. But those who paid no attention to Yahweh's warning left their slaves and their cattle in the fields. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards heaven, and let hail fall throughout Egypt on people and animals, and all that grows in the field." Moses stretched out his staff towards heaven, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail. Lightning struck the earth, and Yahweh rained hail on the land of Egypt. Lightning flashed in the midst of the hail. It was very heavy hail, such as had never been known in all Egypt from the time it had first become a nation. Throughout Egypt, the hail struck everything in the fields, both people and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and felled every tree. But where the Israelites lived, there was no hail. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Now it is clear I have sinned. Yahweh is in the right. I and my people are in the wrong. Pray Yahweh to stop the thunder and hail. I will let you go, and no longer will you stay here." Moses said to him, "As soon as I leave the town, I will lift my hands towards Yahweh. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, and you will know that the earth is Yahweh's. But as for you and your officials, I know that you don't yet fear Yahweh our God." The flax and the barley were ruined, as the barley was almost ripe, and the flax was in flower. But the wheat and the spelt, which are late crops, were not destroyed. Moses left Pharaoh and went out of the city and raised his hands towards Yahweh. The thunder and hail ceased, and it stopped raining. Pharaoh, seeing that there was no rain and that the thunder and hail had ceased, sinned yet again. He and his ministers remained unyielding and would not let the Israelites go, just as Yahweh had foretold through Moses. Exodus chapter 10. Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have made him stubborn and his ministers as well, in order to show my signs among them, and that you may tell your grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians, and about the signs I worked among them, and that you may know that I am Yahweh." Moses went with Aaron and said to Pharaoh, "This is the word of Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews. How much longer will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go and worship me. If you refuse to let my people go, I will bring locusts into your country, and they will completely cover the surface of the land. They will devour what was left after the hail, as well as every tree in the fields. They will fill your house and the houses of your ministers and all the houses in Egypt, something your fathers and their fathers before them have never seen from ancient times to this day." Having said this, Moses turned away and left Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's ministers said to him, "For how long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go and worship Yahweh their God. Don't you realize that Egypt is ruined?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said, "Go, worship Yahweh your God." But exactly who ought to go? Moses said, "We shall go with our young and our old, with our sons and daughters, with our sheep and our cattle, for it is the great feast of Yahweh that we are to celebrate." Pharaoh said, "May Yahweh help you if ever I let you go with your little ones." Oh no, it's clear you are bent on evil. No, only the men will offer sacrifice to Yahweh if that is what you want. And they were driven away from Pharaoh's presence. Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand and bring locusts to the land of Egypt. Let them eat every plant in the land, everything that was left after the hail." So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt. All that day and night, Yahweh brought an east wind over the land, and in the morning the east wind brought the locusts. They came and settled on the land in such quantities as had never been seen before and will never be seen again. They covered the sky of Egypt, and the earth was in darkness. They devoured all the vegetation in the land, and all the fruit of the trees left after the hail. Nothing green remained, neither tree nor plant of the field in all the land of Egypt. Because of all this, Pharaoh hastened to summon Moses and Aaron and said to them, "I have sinned against Yahweh your God and against you. Forgive my sin, I pray you, at least for once, and ask Yahweh your God for a final favor, to rid me of this deadly plague." Moses left Pharaoh and interceded with Yahweh, who brought a very strong wind from the west that carried off the locusts and swept them into the Red Sea. Not one locust was left within the boundaries of Egypt. But Yahweh let Pharaoh be stubborn, and he would not allow the Israelites to leave. Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch your hand towards heaven, and let darkness descend on the land of Egypt, a darkness so dense that it can be felt." Moses stretched out his hand towards heaven, and instantly black darkness covered the land of Egypt for 3 days. They could not see each other, and they could not move about for 3 days. But where the sons of Israel lived, there was light. Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go and worship Yahweh, you and your children with you. Leave only your flocks and herds behind." Moses said, "Are you going to give us animals for our sacrifices and burnt offerings? No, our cattle to the last hoof must also go with us, for it is from our livestock that we will choose the victims we will offer to Yahweh. Moreover, we shall not know which ones we must sacrifice until we arrive at that place." But Yahweh let Pharaoh be stubborn, and Pharaoh would not let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Take care, never come before me again. For the day you do, you will die." Moses said, "It is as you say. I shall never come before you again." Exodus chapter 11. Yahweh said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and Egypt. After that, he will send you away and even drive you away completely. Speak to the people and tell them that both men and women are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold." Yahweh disposed the Egyptians favorably towards the people. Moses, moreover, was regarded as a person of importance in Egypt, both by Pharaoh's ministers and by the people. Moses said, "This is Yahweh's message. About midnight I shall go through Egypt, and all the firstborn in Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who is heir to the throne, to to the firstborn of the servant behind the mill and the firstborn of the animals. There will be great wailing throughout all Egypt, such as has never been before and never will be again. But among the Israelites, not a dog will howl for the death of either man or beast. This is that you may understand that Yahweh makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. All these ministers of yours will come down to me and bow before me, saying, Go, you and all who follow you. After that I will leave. And turning in anger, he left Pharaoh. Yahweh said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, and so the wonders that I do in Egypt will be multiplied. Moses and Aaron had worked all these marvels in the presence of Pharaoh, but Yahweh had made Pharaoh obstinate, and he would not let the people of Israel leave his country. Exodus chapter 12. Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt and said, This month is to be the beginning of all months, the first month of your year. Speak to the community of Israel and say to them, On the 10th day of this month, let each family take a lamb for each house. If the family is too small for a lamb, they must join with a neighbor, the nearest to the house, according to the number of persons and to what each one can eat. You will select a perfect lamb without blemish, a male born during the present year, taken from the sheep or goats. Then you will keep it until the 14th day of the month. On that evening, all the people will slaughter their lambs and take some of the blood to put on the doorposts and on top of the door frames of the houses where you eat. That night you will eat the flesh roasted at the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat the meat lightly cooked or boiled in water, but roasted entirely over the fire, the head, the legs, and the inner parts. Do not leave any of it until the morning. If any is left till morning, burn it in the fire. And this is how you will eat: with a belt around your waist, sandals on your feet, and a staff in your hand. You shall eat hastily, for it is a Passover in honor of Yahweh. On that night I shall go through Egypt and strike every firstborn in Egypt, men and animals, and I will even bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I, Yahweh, the blood on your houses will be the sign that you are there. I will see the blood and pass over you, and you will escape the mortal plague when I strike Egypt. This is a day you are to remember and celebrate in honor of Yahweh. It is to be kept as a festival day for all generations forever. For 7 days you are to eat unleavened bread. From the first day you are to remove all leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first to the 7th day will no longer live in Israel. On the first day there will be a sacred reunion, and another on the 7th. No work is to be done on these days except what is necessary in the preparation of food. Celebrate the feast of unleavened bread, because on that day I brought your armies out of Egypt. Celebrate it in future generations as an everlasting ordinance. In the first month, from the 14th day in the evening to the 21st, you are to eat unleavened bread. For 7 days there will be no leaven in your houses. Anyone who eats what is leavened will be cut off from the community of Israel, whether foreigner or native born. Nothing leavened is to be eaten, only unleavened bread is to be eaten. Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Select and take one animal for each family and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a twig of hyssop dipped in its blood and sprinkle the blood on the doorposts and the top of the door frame. From then on, no one will go out of the door of the house before morning, because Yahweh will pass through to strike Egypt, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and the doorposts, he will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to enter your houses and kill. You and your descendants shall observe these instructions as an everlasting ordinance. You will carry out this ceremony when you enter the land that Yahweh will give you, as he promised. And when your children ask you, 'What does this ceremony mean?' you will tell them, 'It is the sacrifice of the Passover for Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the Israelites when he struck Egypt and spared our houses.' When the people heard this, they bowed down and worshipped. Then they went away and did what Yahweh had ordered Moses and Aaron. It happened that in the middle of the night, Yahweh struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, heir to the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the animals. Pharaoh, his officials, and all the Egyptians got up in the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was no house without a death. Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron in the night and said, "Get up and go from among my people, you and the people of Israel. Go and worship Yahweh as you have said. Take your sheep and your cattle, as you told me, and go, provided that the blessing be for me as well." The Egyptians too pressed the people to leave the country in all haste, for they said, "If they don't go, we are all going to die." So the Israelites carried away on their shoulders the dove which had not yet risen, and their kneading bowls wrapped in their cloaks. They did as Moses had instructed them, and borrowed from the Egyptians articles of gold and silver and clothes. Yahweh made the Egyptians agree to the requests of his people and give them what they asked for. In this way, they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites left Ramesses for Succoth, about 600,000 of them on the march, counting the men only and not the children. A great number of other people of all descriptions went with them, as well as sheep and cattle in droves. With the dough they had brought with them from Egypt, they made cakes of unleavened bread. It had not risen, for they were driven from Egypt. They could not delay, and had not even provided themselves with food. The Israelites had been in Egypt for 430 years. It was at the end of these 430 years, to the very day, that the armies of Yahweh left Egypt. This is the watch for Yahweh, who brought Israel out of Egypt. This night is for Yahweh, and all the Israelites are also to keep vigil on this night, year after year, for all time. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, "These are the precepts for the celebration of the Passover. No foreigner is to eat it, except the slave who has been circumcised after having been bought. He may eat it, but not so the temporary resident or the hired worker. The lamb must be eaten inside the house, and nothing of it shall be taken outside. Do not break any of its bones. All the community of Israel will observe this rite. If a guest is staying with you and wants to celebrate the Passover of Yahweh, he must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part, like one born in the land, but no uncircumcised man may participate. The law is the same for the native and the stranger living with you. All the people of Israel did as Yahweh had commanded Moses and Aaron, and that same day Yahweh brought out the sons of Israel and their armies from the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 13. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Consecrate to me every firstborn, the first to leave the womb among the sons of Israel, whether of man or beast, is mine." Moses said to the people, "Remember the day you came out of Egypt from the house of slavery, for it was by his power that Yahweh brought you out. Because of this, you will not eat leavened bread. The day you left was in the month of Abib, when Yahweh brings you to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey, which he swore to your fathers to give you, you will carry out this ceremony. For 7 days you will eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day you will hold a feast in honor of Yahweh. You will eat unleavened bread for 7 days, and no leavened bread is to be seen among you or anywhere throughout all your territory. On that day you will tell your son, 'I do this because of what Yahweh did for me when I came out of Egypt.' This ceremony will be for you as a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead, so that Yahweh's law may be ever on your lips. For it was with great power that Yahweh brought you out of Egypt. Because of this, you will observe this ordinance at the appointed time from year to year. When Yahweh brings you to the land of the Canaanites and gives it to you, as he swore to you and your ancestors, you are to give over to Yahweh all that first opens the womb, and every firstborn of your cattle as well. These firstborn that are males are for Yahweh. Every firstborn donkey will be redeemed by a lamb, and if you do not redeem it, you are to break its neck. Every firstborn among your sons you are to redeem. When in the future your son questions you as to what it means, you will say, 'Yahweh, by his power, brought us out of Egypt from the house of slavery. As Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, Yahweh slew every firstborn in Egypt, of man and beast. That is why I sacrifice to Yahweh all the males of my cattle that first open the womb, but the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It will be as a sign on your hand and a charm between your eyes, reminding you that the power of Yahweh brought us out of Egypt." It happened that when Pharaoh sent the people away, God did not lead them through the land of the Philistines, although it was nearer, for God thought that the people might lose heart if they were faced with the prospect of a battle and would return to Egypt. God therefore led the people by the way of the wilderness towards the Red Sea. So the Israelites left Egypt in an orderly manner. Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, for he had made the Israelites swear, saying, "God will surely remember you, and then you will carry my bones with you away from here." They moved on from Succoth and encamped at Etham, bordering the wilderness. By day, Yahweh went before them in a pillar of cloud to guide them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, enabling them to travel day and night. Neither the cloud by day nor the fire by night disappeared from the sight of the people. Exodus chapter 14. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pihahiroth between Migdol and the sea, facing Baal-zephon. You will encamp opposite this place and near the sea. So Pharaoh will think that the people of Israel have lost their way and the wilderness has closed in on them. Then I will make Pharaoh's heart stubborn so that he will pursue you, and I will draw glory for myself at the cost of Pharaoh and his army, and the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh." And the Israelites did as they had been instructed. The king of Egypt was told that the people had fled. Then Pharaoh and his ministers changed their minds with regard to the people. "What have we done," they said, "in allowing Israel to go and be free of our service?" Pharaoh prepared his chariot and took his army with him. There were 600 of his best chariots. Indeed, he took all the Egyptian chariots, each one with his warriors. Yahweh had hardened the mind of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who set out in pursuit of the Israelites as they marched forth triumphantly. The Egyptians, all the chariots and horses of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, gave chase and caught up with them when they had encamped by the sea near Pihahiroth, facing Baal-zephon. The Israelites saw the Egyptians marching after them. Pharaoh was drawing near. They were terrified and cried out to Yahweh. Then they said to Moses, "Were there no tombs in Egypt? Why have you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done by bringing us out of Egypt? Isn't this what we said when we were in Egypt? Let us work for the Egyptians. Far better serve Egypt than to die in the desert." Moses said to the people, "Have no fear. Stay where you are and see the work Yahweh will do to save you today. The Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. Yahweh will fight for you, and all you have to do is to keep still." Yahweh said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. You will raise your staff and stretch your hand over the sea and divide it to let the Israelites go dry foot through the sea. I will so harden the minds of the Egyptians that they will follow you, and I will have glory at the expense of Pharaoh, his army, his chariots and horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh when I gain glory for myself at the cost of Pharaoh and his army." The angel of God, who had gone ahead of the Israelites, now placed himself behind them. The pillar of cloud changed its position from the front to the rear between the camps of the Israelites and the Egyptians. For one army, the cloud provided light, for the other, darkness, so that throughout the night the armies drew no closer to each other. Moses stretched his hand over the sea, and Yahweh made a strong east wind blow all night and dry up the sea. The waters divided, and the sons of Israel went on dry ground through the middle of the sea, with the waters forming a wall in their right and to their left. The Egyptians followed them, and all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots and horsemen moved forward in the middle of the sea. It happened that in the morning watch, Yahweh in the pillar of cloud and fire looked towards the Egyptian camp and threw it into confusion. He so clogged their chariot wheels that they could hardly move. Then the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for Yahweh is fighting for them against Egypt." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch your hand over the sea, and let the waters come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots and horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. Daybreak, the sea returned to its place. As the Egyptians tried to flee, Yahweh swept them into the sea. The waters flowed back and engulfed the chariots and horsemen of the whole army of Pharaoh that had followed Israel into the sea. Not one of them escaped. As for the Israelites, they went forward on dry ground in the middle of the sea, the waters forming a wall on their right and their left. On that day, Yahweh delivered Israel from the power of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the seashore. They understood what wonders Yahweh had done for them against Egypt, and the people feared Yahweh. They believed in Yahweh and in Moses his servant. Exodus chapter 15. Then Moses and the people sang this song to Yahweh. "I will sing to Yahweh, the glorious one. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. Yahweh is my strength and my song, and he is my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. The God of my father, I will extol him. Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. The chariots of Pharaoh and his army he has hurled into the sea. His chosen officers were drowned in the Red Sea. The deep covers them. They went down like a stone. Your hand, O Yahweh, glorious and powerful. Your right hand, O Yahweh, shatters the enemy. In the splendor of your majesty, you crush your foes. You send forth your fury, which devours them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The surging waters stood firm in a heap. The deep congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, "I will give chase and overtake. I will divide the spoil and make a feast of it. I shall draw my sword, and my hand will destroy them. A breath of yours, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, Yahweh? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in power, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In unfailing love, you guided the people you redeemed. In strength, you led them to your holy house." Hearing this, the nations trembled. Anguish grips the people of Philistia. The chieftains of Edom are dismayed. The leaders of Moab are seized with trembling. The people of Canaan melt away. Terror and dread fall upon them. Your powerful arm leaves them still as stone. Until your peoples pass by, O Yahweh, till the people you have purchased pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place you chose to dwell in, O Yahweh, the sanctuary prepared by your hands. Yahweh will reign forever. When Pharaoh's chariots, horses, and horsemen went into the sea, Yahweh brought back the waters over them, while the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea. Then Miriam, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women followed her, dancing and playing tambourines. Miriam sang to them, "Sing to Yahweh, the glorious one. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." Moses then led Israel from the Red Sea towards the wilderness of Shur. They walked in the desert for 3 days without finding water. They reached Marah, but could not drink the water there, as it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. The people grumbled against Moses and said, "What shall we drink?" Moses then cried out to Yahweh, who showed him a piece of wood. And when he threw it in the water became sweet. There Yahweh gave the people statutes and laws. There he tested them and said, "If you listen carefully to the voice of Yahweh, your God, and if you do what is right in his eyes, if you obey his commands and statutes, I will not inflict on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am Yahweh, the one who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there are 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and there they pitched their camp beside the water.